So what's my 2 cents a little deeper on Netanyahu's speech in Congress? Well, I believe more important than Bibi's speech itself is the pride instilled in Jews all over the world by him just speaking in Congress with all the resounding applause and standing ovations from both Democrats and Republicans. I don't think his speech will impact any change to international diplomacy towards Israel, especially not from the Biden administration, that will continue treating Israel as the bad guy, act as the negotiator for Hamas, pressuring Israel to appease the demands of the evil Islamic Republic of Iran and the Qatar-led Muslim Brotherhood. Nah, it's not going to change all of that. To me, the most important aspect of Bibi's speech in Congress is its impact on the Jewish people worldwide, uplifting Jewish pride for Jews all over the world. His speech was broadcast live on every major TV network in the US and even internationally. Jews worldwide saw this, and that is also important in our global war effort as a people to raise our spirits as we move forward in this war effort that still hasn't even begun properly up north. So this is still very much the beginning, and it's we, the people, the Jewish people, how we're moving forward, and this helps. Still, it must be noted that I obviously would have spoken differently about our rights to all of our land, not just that we are Jews from Judea and that this will always be our home. That's your regular stuff. But it can't be a home to a KGB-invented people called Palestinians whose sole purpose is to kill Jews and destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That must have been mentioned, and it wasn't. That the only solution to ending the evil terror from Gaza is by making Gaza Jewish again and resettling Gaza with Jewish communities. That should have been said. And I would have never highlighted and boasted how we, Israel, risk our soldiers' lives to save their lives. And an immoral policy that sacrifices the lives of our holy idea of soldiers on the altar of political correctness to placate a world that still will treat us as the enemy no matter how many soldiers we sacrifice to save the lives of their non-combatants. But knowing all of that, Bibi is the best we got right now, out of all the other realistic prime minister options in Israel. And he did a good job, as best as possible, with his speech, for him, for the benefit of the Jewish people today. Until we merit the time of being able to have a better leader who can truly stand up for our rights to our land, call out all of our enemies, not just the one with consensus like Iran, and who can stand up proudly presenting the only solution, Jewish resettlement in all areas where our enemies attack us from along our borders. That is how you win wars. And that's a leader that we need to say that. Until that day, I say thank you to Netanyahu on an amazing speech raising the spirits of the Jewish people. And I reflect on how blessed we are that we have Netanyahu as our prime minister today instead of the other realistic options like Lapid, Bennett, Lieberman, Gantz. And I will continue to work to develop the awareness necessary in the public to merit the true leader of Israel we need to help us win and truly fulfill our purpose as the Jewish people in our God-given ancestral homeland. And our holy idea of soldiers fighting on the ground, including 2 of my sons, and me every once in a while when I'm called up to my reserve duty, we represent the true proud future of the Jewish people, fulfilling our purpose as the Jewish people in our God-given ancestral homeland. So the leaders are out there, the future leaders who will know how to stand up for Israel and say everything that's necessary for us, not just the politically correct stuff that the world will clap at. But the world is ultimately going to clap when they see Israel doing everything, and I mean everything, including resettling every single piece of land that our enemies attack us from and making those areas Jewish. That's when the world will truly clap and applaud, because they know we are standing up to defend all of them, not just in words, but in total deeds. The world is waiting for the Jewish people to do everything necessary, all the politically incorrect truth of what we have to say and do to protect Israel and the whole freedom-loving world. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching another episode of The Pulse of Israel, here in our Jewish, eternal, ancestral, biblical homeland, Israel, and our beautiful Judean hills.
By 11 votes to 4, is of the opinion that the State of Israel's continued presence in the occupied territory is unlawful.
Now, from what I understand, this ruling really has no teeth to it, but this now gives ammunition to the United Nations to bring sanctions on Israel. So if the Security Council of the United Nations decides on sanctions, and the Biden administration, or whatever U.S. administration, it's going to be replacing Biden, if he's replaced, If they do not withhold a veto, then yeah, the international community can be implementing sanctions on the Jewish state of Israel because of this ruling from the International Court of Justice. Now, let's break this down, because there's nothing just about this ruling. It's totally against history, right? Jews are called Jews because we are from Judea. Historically, Jews have always lived here. You cannot call Jews occupiers in our ancestral homeland, where Jews have always lived. There's always been a presence of Jews in Jerusalem since forever. There has always been a presence of Jews in Hebron, right? Our second holiest city, where the mamas and the papas are buried in the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs in a building built by King Herod, a Roman king who was a Jewish Roman king, over 2,000 years ago. And yet the International Court of Justice is saying that according to international law, the Jewish homeland, where the oldest cemetery in Hebron, and even older than Hebron, and where we have our oldest Jewish cemeteries of the world, Hebron, the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, which has members buried there from the Bible times, for the International Court of Justice to say this doesn't belong to the Jewish people, it's insane. It's unjust. So that's just using one's common sense and history. This is the Jewish homeland. It's our ancestral homeland. The Bible stories took place here. There are archaeological finds that prove the Bible stories to be true. So the International Criminal Court, it's not about justice dealing with facts or history. But let's treat it on an international law issue. Well, I'm going to read something written out by Itamar Marcus just a few days ago. Know your facts. Defend Israel from the International Court of Justice. Fact number 1, written by Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch, palwatch.org. Amazing organization. Everyone visit it. Get your information from there. Fact number 1, United Nations Resolutions 242 and 338 affirm Israel's right under international law to administer all of what is today called Area C in Judea and Samaria, where Israelis live. Okay, that's according to international law, UN Resolutions 242 and 338. Fact number 2, the Oslo Accords signed between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization back in 1993 reaffirmed Israel's right to administer all of Area C in Judea and Samaria. Okay, so even according to the Oslo Accords, the international agreement that unfortunately had Israel give away our rights to some of our land in Judea and Samaria to this terror organization called the Palestinian Liberation Organization, still, even according to the legal documentation of the Oslo Accords, Area C belongs to the Jewish people, the Jewish state of Israel, according to international law. Fact number 3, UN Resolution 242 and the Oslo Accords do not require Israel to withdraw to new borders that do not guarantee Israel's security. Okay, so Israel has every right, according to international law, to be in Judea and Samaria. Fact number 4, in the hope for peace, Israel has already given up so much of its land to the Palestinian Authority that Israel no longer has secure borders. And thousands of Israelis have been murdered because of the insecure borders. And the International Organization, Just Criminal Court, is ignoring the fact that even with our rights to be in Judea and Samaria, the core right of the international agreements was Israel having secure borders. We don't have secure borders in Judea and Samaria. The Palestinian Authority supports terrorism. It pays terrorists. There are terrorists all over the place. We have the army every day and night, going in to Arab towns and villages and killing and arresting terrorists who are trying to kill us every single day. So there are no secure borders that are necessary according to international law. Fact number 5, having withdrawn to insecure borders, Israel has given away more land than required by United Nations Resolution 242 and the Oslo Accords, and has more than fulfilled all of its withdrawal obligations under international law. And now Itamar Marcus goes on to conclusions. Conclusion number 1, all Israeli towns and cities in Judea and Samaria are legal according to international law. Conclusion number 2, all further development by Israel of Area C in Judea and Samaria, meaning new settlement constructions in the language of many Israeli detractors, is therefore 100% legal under international law. And conclusion number 3, if peace talks ever resume, not only isn't Israel obliged to give away more of its land ever again, but Israel can demand that the Palestinian Authority withdraw from parts of Areas A and Areas B, which Israel gave to the Palestinian Authority and which the Palestinian Authority turned into launching grounds for terror, which they're supposed to be secure borders. Hence, the Palestinian Authority is going against the Oslo Accords and against the international agreements that Israel signed on to with the guarantors of the international community. Hence, the International Court of Justice is making a mockery of itself. There is nothing just or legal about its recent decision, making it illegal for Israel and the Jewish people to be in Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank, a term used to delegitimize our connection to our ancestral homelands. So here's another thing that I like to tell people. How is it possible that a Jew can live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or Bethlehem, Texas, or any one of the Bethlehem cities in the United States, because there are Bethlehem cities all across the United States, but yet it is forbidden under international law for a Jew to live in Bethlehem, Israel, where King David was born, where the story of Ruth and Naomi that we read and celebrate every Jewish holiday of Shavuot, that city is forbidden for Jews. And that's just a microcosm, that the city of Hebron is forbidden for Jews. That East Jerusalem, folks, the Mount of Olives is on East Jerusalem. That's one of the oldest cemeteries of Jews in the world. There is no East Jerusalem. There is one Jerusalem. It was a united city until Jordan illegally occupied it and hence divided the old city of Jerusalem away from the new city of Jerusalem, and then it became Judenrein. And then, based on that ceasefire border of the 1948 war, Jews were forbidden to live on the side illegally occupied by Jordan. But anyone who knows history knows that the first people to live outside of the old city walls of Jerusalem were Jews at the end of the 19th century. There was no East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem ever until it was occupied and divided by Jordan in 1948. There's always been one unified city of Jerusalem, and like any city, there are different sides to it. Northern side, southern side, eastern side, western side. There is no entity called East Jerusalem with historic importance to a fake people called Palestinians that it deserves to be theirs and not belong to the Jews. No. Jerusalem is Jerusalem. Jews lived on the eastern side as the western side. The first Jews who lived outside of the old city walls on the eastern side were Jews. So all of this attention on Israel and using the courts, it's all part of the anti-Semitic agenda to de-Jew our ancestral homeland. And unfortunately, it's the Palestinian Authority working together with these international organizations and Western governments, and the Western governments allowing the Palestinian Authority to take advantage of the International Court of Justice and to take advantage of the United Nations. Again, the Biden administration, France, Britain, Germany, all these governments are allowing, working hand in hand with the Palestinian Authority to do this international lawfare terrorism against the Jewish people and our rights to be in our ancestral Jewish homeland. So it's all a joke, but international law is being made to be a joke. The International Court of Justice is being made to be a joke. The United Nations is being made to be a joke. The justice of Western democratic governments like the Biden administration and Britain and France and Germany who are playing along with this are exposing themselves as being a joke and not truly caring about truth or justice. Anyone who truly cared about truth or justice, and about life, and about human rights, and the right to live, well, it would be clear. They would be calling for the total destruction and removal, not only of Hamas, and every other Islamic terror entity that exists, that terrorizes us, Islamic Jihad and others, but also calling for the destruction and the removal of the Palestinian Authority that supports terror. And don't tell me they don't know about it. The United States Taylor Force Act acknowledges that the Palestinian Authority gives money to terrorists, hence it supports terror, and that's why the U.S. government cannot legally give money to the Palestinian Authority. So the U.S. government knows the Palestinian Authority supports terror. It has no right to exist. It has no right to represent a people that deserve a state. It is an entity whose sole purpose is the destruction of the Jewish state of Israel. And yet the United Nations, the Criminal Court of Justice, U.S. State Department with the Biden administration today, and other Western European governments in the Western world are all playing this game of giving the rights to the Palestinian Authority where they have no rights. Because we all know there is no historic people called Palestinians. And I tell you this all the time. Before 1948, you check the media, check the New York Times archives. Whenever the media referenced Palestinians, it referred to Jews. Before 1948. So there was no historic Palestinian people before 1948. The United Nations Partition Plan of 1947 has no mention of a Palestinian people or the creation of a Palestinian state for a Palestinian people. They were called Arabs, and it was the creation of an Arab state. Don't you think if the United Nations knew that there were a people called Palestinians, the official language of the partition plan would have said Palestinian state for the Palestinians? But that doesn't exist in the United Nations partition plan because there was no people called Palestinians in 1947. We were Jews living in the British Mandate of Palestine, and hence the world called us Palestinians. All the Arabs were Arabs. Because another fact that the world likes to ignore that you should know because you follow me, most of the Arabs who live here or came at the beginning of the 20th century for work because Jews were here. They're mostly all migrants from other Arab countries. Hence, they're all Arabs. They're from Iraq, from Syria, from Egypt, from Lebanon. They're not historically from here. Only a minority of the Arabs actually have a history living here. And not because they're historic people, but most probably many of them were forcibly converted to Islam because they were once Jews during one of the conquests of the Muslims. Because the Muslims are the biggest conquestors of the world. They conquered the Middle East. They conquered Northern Africa. They conquered Spain and Portugal before the Christians pushed them out of Spain and Portugal. Right? They are the biggest conquerors. They are the biggest occupiers still to this day, who still to this day persecute minorities. As opposed to Israel, which is the only country in the Middle East, the Jewish state of Israel, where a Sunni Muslim, a Shiite Muslim, a female Muslim, a gay Muslim, an atheist-born Muslim can live with total freedom and equality together with Jews, Christians, and all other minorities in the Jewish state of Israel. We're the only country that gives rights and freedom and equality to all type of Muslims, while all the other Arab Muslim countries in the Middle East persecute minorities. And you only have rights if you're part of the majority. So folks, once again, we're seeing the exposure of the hypocrisy and the injustice of the Western world today. And here in Israel, we gave a very forceful answer and a boost of support for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as he plans to fly to America to speak before both houses of Congress and potentially meet with Biden if he's not sick or still in power. And that was a vote in Israel's parliament in the Knesset last week where a majority of Israeli politicians, of the 120 politicians in Israel's parliament and our Knesset, voted firmly against ever recognizing the establishment of a state called Palestine. Understanding this land belongs to us, and we are never, ever going to allow a state of Palestine to be created. And that's to pressure and give Netanyahu the backing to not fall for whatever pressure the Biden administration might be putting upon him to appease our terror enemies. So Netanyahu's leaving for Washington knowing that the majority of the Israeli people and the majority of Israeli politicians, including some in the opposition, Benny Gantz voted for this as well in his party, that he has no mandate whatsoever to give up into whatever pressure pushed upon him towards steps that would bring about the establishment of a state called Palestine. Because most people in Israel today understand. October 7th woke up many who are still asleep. And even though I and many of my fellow Jews have been screaming about this for years, that the whole purpose of the state called Palestine is to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That's it. It's a salami approach. It's a salami approach that even Yasser Arafat spoke about when the Oslo Accords were signed. And he admitted in a radio recording of a speech that he gave at a mosque in South Africa that he was basically following Muhammad. And Muhammad's treaty was basically, if you can't beat the enemy, then just make a treaty until the enemy is weak, and then you attack and destroy them. And Arafat said exactly that was what the Oslo Accords were about understanding they couldn't destroy Israel. They're going to make a treaty to weaken us, which they have been weakened because too many Jews fell into the dream, the messianic dream of peace with terrorists who want to kill us, who have been killing us, and ignored the reality of what Arafat and the Palestinian Arabs were saying to themselves and to the world in Arabic all these years, that their whole purpose is to kill us and destroy us. Well, the Jewish people understand this. They're not killing us because of where we live, in Judea and Samaria or in Gaza. They're killing us because we're Jews. Killing us right-wingers, left-wingers, religious, secular, anti, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. They're killing any Jew because they think we're Jewish, because they don't want us here and they want to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That is the ultimate message the Jewish people sent off Netanyahu to Washington with. Don't you dare. You don't have a mandate for any concessions, no matter what pressure the Biden administration puts upon you. And ultimately, Netanyahu's not even the story. The story is me and you. It's about the pressure we put out there on people who follow us and listen to us to understand never will the Jewish people ever agree to the establishment of a state called Palestine, whose sole purpose is the destruction of Israel. Rather, there's only one solution for the future. The solution is Jewish-Israeli sovereignty throughout Judea and Samaria, throughout Gaza, with us building up our land, building up our ancestral homeland in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, with as many Jewish communities as possible. And the only Arabs allowed to live there are those who do not support killing us or destroying the state of Israel. That's it. Any Arab who supports killing us or destroying the Jewish state of Israel will not be living anywhere with us in Judea and Samaria, in Gaza, or even anywhere else throughout Israel. Because unfortunately, we witness even on Israeli campuses that there are Israeli Arabs with Israeli citizenship. They can become prime minister according to Israeli law, that they're protesting in support of the destruction of the Jewish state of Israel. Well, those people, no matter that they're Israeli citizens today, their citizenship should be revoked and they should be expelled because they support the destruction of the country they're living in. One day we're going to get to that. So it's up to us to spread the true solution. And that is a strong Jewish state of Israel with total sovereignty in Judea and Samaria and Gaza. That's our response to the hypocrisy and to the injustice of the international community and Western governments who are pushing the fact that it's illegal for us to live in our ancestral homeland. So everyone, like I like to tell you, this is a wake-up process. So don't be depressed about the news. Don't be depressed about the ICJ, the International Criminal Justice's of injustice, really, ruling, making it illegal for us to be in Judea and Samaria, no matter what pressure is going to come from the United Nations, no matter what pressure for the Biden administration. Stay strong. Pray to God above. He is in charge. We're going to come out of this bigger and stronger than ever before. And again, the most important thing is that we are waking up. The Jewish people are waking up, no longer be trusting of the international community. We have to trust ourselves and do what's right for ourselves so that we have a bright future, not based on the lies of the international community, which is running along this fake narrative, which I call is the biggest historic blood libel against Jews ever, called Palestine. That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you are not yet a subscriber to Pulse of Israel, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And if these are messages and videos that you want to help us get out there to be seen by many more people, every once in a while, just click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com. Signing off from our ancestral, historic, biblical, and beautiful land of Israel in our biblical, ancestral, indigenous, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Shalom. And this is Avi Abela for another episode of Pulse of Israel.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.